Welcome, everyone. My name is Maria, and we'll get started here in a little bit as we let everyone in. We're so happy to have you join us today. The first Eagle Family Hour of the year. So we'll give it a minute as we let our families in. But thank you for joining us today. I'm not sure where you are, but it's a hard sell when it's beautiful out to actually be on a Zoom call. So thank you for joining us. Hello, Becky. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
Hello. We'll get started here in a minute, but my name is Maria, and we'll get started on our first Eagle Family Hour, the 22-23 academic year. We're excited to have our guest speaker today. We'll give it another minute or so to let everyone in. But yeah, we thank you for joining us. All right, what do you think? Should we get going? Okay. So welcome everyone. My name is Maria Reyna. I'm the Director of Orientation and Family Programs. We are starting our academic year, the 22-23, with the Eagle Family Hour with Dr. Sam Armstrong-Ash, our Dean of Students. Just a couple of announcements I'm going to make before I start off with some questions with Sam. But I just want to let everyone know you can leave your cameras off, you can turn them on, but we are recording this session, so that way we can share this on our family website page, so other family members can watch this later on throughout their time that they're able. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to unmute yourselves, or my assistant director here, Megan Custer, can answer, so can help us with the questions if you wish to put them in the chat. So feel free to put questions in the chat throughout the presentation, or definitely, we're a small group, you can unmute yourselves and ask the questions if you'd like. So I just wanted to let you all know that. And again, we'll definitely share this. I know we have a lot of family members who are not able to attend, but really appreciate that we have these recordings on our website to view them at their leisure. All right, so without further ado, we have our Dean of Students here, Dr. Sam Armstrong, that I was mentioning earlier, who I also like to say is our Instagram queen, because she definitely keeps us informed through the Instagram, and we'll definitely put a push and let you know how to follow her on her Instagram page. But I would like to start off with thanking you, Sam, for being here with us this afternoon, and for kind of just sharing with our families what it means to be the Dean of Students. So if you could introduce yourself, your background, and then the role that you play at Eastern as our Dean of Students.
Well, good afternoon, all. As Maria noted, I'm Samantha Armstrong-Ash, or Sam, or your students may refer to me as Dean Sam because that is my Instagram account. However, Sam is really just fine. My background is in higher education and leadership. So I have worked in higher education now for over 15 years. And have worked at a number of different institutions. I have been at Eastern Washington University for the last 11 years in different roles. And for the past, I think I'm starting year 3. I have worked as the Dean of Students. The Dean of Students, I think, is becoming a little bit more of a popular job title in the K through 12 system. So you may have heard it there, but it is really more like what I would link it closest to is a principal in the K through 12 system. So my role is really student care, crisis, and conduct. I get to work with incredibly impressive teams in counseling wellness services, student accommodation support services, student rights and responsibilities. And then I myself also often will work with students in navigating life and the university. I do operate an Instagram account at DOS EWU that I know a number of parents follow and a number of students also follow. And we try to put content on there that helps students navigate their time at Eastern and navigate the transitions that they're going through. So we have a student success series. We have a student, an adulting 101 series. So we'll post things, everything from what to do to get stains out of your clothes to, how to navigate a breakup. So we do there's a lot of content on there. So that is a little bit about my role. If there are any questions about my role, feel free to drop those in the chat and I'll kind of be monitoring it as well and happy to answer those. But that's a little bit about my background. I did my undergrad at Idaho State University a long time ago now. And then I went to Western Washington University, and then I went to Washington State University and worked there for a while. And Eastern really is one of, it's just a really incredible and special place. So we are so thankful and excited to be part of your students' journey in life and in their academic pursuits.
As you all are thinking of your questions, I do want to start us off with one question that we often get from families and especially students is around the health care that students can receive through their health fee, and also any upcoming clinics for like flu shots or immunizations and things like that, if you don't mind talking on that.
So I just before this, I reached out. We often partner with a local provider to have a flu clinic on campus. We haven't scheduled that for this year, but I do anticipate that we will have a flu shot clinic on campus. However, if your student is interested in flu shots, flu vaccines, or really any other vaccines, I know the new COVID bivalent that protects against the Omicron variant is out. We did have a bivalent clinic as part of Neighbor Fest on campus. And so they had the opportunity on campus at that time to get that. But our local pharmacies, so Safeway in particular, is one that students schedule in advance, and their student ID actually gives them access to the buses. One of the fees that they pay is the student transportation fee, and that gives them an extremely discounted rate to access the Spokane Transit bus system and navigate wherever they need to go. So I do recommend some of our local pharmacies if they're wanting to get it before we have the opportunity to have a clinic on campus. We also have a multi-care Rockwood clinic just adjacent to campus. It's literally right across the street from Hargraves Hall, and they can pop in and get their flu shot there as well. And that is one of the things that is covered as part of their health fee. As Maria mentioned, when you attend college, you have tuition, which pays for the classes and the classroom experience, but then you do also have a lot of additional fees that you pay. So on our campus, some of those fees include that transportation fee, which covers their ability to ride the Spokane Transit, but it also covers bike fix-it stations and some of our biking and commuter infrastructure. and some of the things that we do to upgrade parking lots and that kind of thing. And that's students run a committee. It's a student-led committee that also has faculty and staff on it to look at how those fees are working for students. And so that's another way for your student to get involved. We also have the student activities fee committee. And student activities fees go to support a lot of different things on campus. Clubs and organizations. It allows them to attend all of our athletic events free of charge. They just show their student ID, and it's not really free of charge. They've paid the student activities fee, but they show their student ID, and then they don't have any additional fees that they need to pay. So access to those. The rec center fee, you'll see that, which gives them access to the rec center and all that that holds. And then the health fee, which people often have a lot of questions about, and I will drop a link in the chat where you can see what that coverage looks like and how to reach out. But the health fee, we call it the comprehensive health fee because it's not just access of a visit per term to Multi-Care Rockwood. It is also access to counseling and wellness services. We have an app that is supported for mental health. So if a student is struggling, there's a text messaging app that fee helps support, that students can reach out, and they do use that text messaging solution. So some of our wellness services, as far as our health huts and materials that we send out to students, that fee supports. So that fee is really much more comprehensive and looks at kind of the holistic approach that we're working to support your student in. It does, again, some basic level care and support for students. It supports that, but we do know that there are things that sometimes are beyond what that fee covers, and that's where them knowing what their insurance is, the health insurance that they may be covered by with you, if they have a copy of their health insurance card, that can be really helpful. Knowing the providers in the area or getting their community of care set up in the area. So are they scheduling their regular appointments when they are coming home for a visit, say around the winter break, or are they setting up practitioners in our area? So if Rockwood and Multi-Care, it looks like Rockwood and Multi-Care may not have started giving them. So that's great to know. I hadn't heard that. So I'll reach out to them and see what's going on. Sometimes that's just when do they get their shipments in, and they're trying to maximize the coverage for the flu season. So sometimes that can be the case. But I do know that Safeway, I'm guessing Owl's Pharmacy might also give them, Bi-Mart might also be giving them. So I can work with Maria and Megan to send out, here are all the different locations that you can get. And if they do decide to go to Safeway, I know at least for Safeway, they can just log on, they can schedule their appointment in advance and walk right in. And then if we do end up having that flu clinic, which we usually do on campus, we'll send that information out. And we usually text students. So last year we texted all the students that had opted into our Navigate text messaging and go from there. So that's kind of a little bit of an overview on the fees. If you have any additional questions, I know just enough to be dangerous, but I'm by no means the absolute fee expert. That would be Student Financial Services. And as far as counseling and wellness goes, I'll drop some information in there so that you can make sure to explore, if you haven't already, counseling and wellness services and everything that those that comprehensive fee helps support. Give me just a second. Maria, you can go ahead and ask another question though.
I actually have one that was direct message to me. So I'm going to explain, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but essentially, this family member's student is having problems speaking with an advisor for help. They feel like the student wasn't set up for success. The student is pursuing pre-engineering and will need an alternative approach to the schedule that will account for math and science prerequisites.
Is the student, so this is harder because I need to know, like, is the student a first year student? Or what year is the student?
Let's assume, it doesn't say, let's assume first year.
Okay, so I would do a couple of things. The first 2 years, usually that a student is on campus, they're advised by our Center for Academic Advising and Retention. And that is really focused on doing their prerequisites. Maria actually is more of an expert in this than I am because Maria worked in academic advising for a number of years. If they're struggling with getting an appointment with their advisor or they need a little bit more guidance, they can always reach out to the associate director or the director of the Center for Academic Advising and Retention and say, here's what I'm grappling with. Can I talk through this with somebody? Can I get a little bit of additional support? The answer may be that there isn't an ability because of what courses are offered or how it works to accommodate what's being requested. So that's part of the thing is I'm flying blind on not being able to necessarily ask all the details of like, okay, talk to me about this and talk to me about this. So the answer may be that there actually isn't an ability to accommodate what they're requesting. The other thing is they may want to go to the department they're eventually looking at getting into and sit down with the chair of that department in particular and talk through what the options are to get to that department long term. So talking to the chair of the department can kind of help the student understand, here's why we're requiring certain things, or here's where we would make an exception, and they could put that in writing. And so the chair of whatever department they're looking for may be a really good resource to also reach out to. Maria, do you think I missed anything on that?
No, and whomever asked that question, definitely feel free to direct message me myself, because I can definitely help navigate that, whether that's taking the student and making that connection. So that way the student feels like they have the right person that they're meeting with. So I'm happy to do that.
So in Navigate, again, they should be able to see and navigate their advisors. But they may want to talk to the department chair. And if it's a result of like somebody saying, well, those classes aren't offered, or I don't know what would be an exception, that's going to be the department more than likely that says yes or no to that versus a CAR advisor. Any other questions so far? Maria, I know you had a list.
I do. As you're thinking of questions, one of the questions that often come up as well is, where do I send my student when they're telling me that they're struggling in their courses? So when do we, I guess a lot of times families and even students don't know, maybe they're not feeling like they can approach the professor, which is always my number one advice, is really having the students speak with the professors. But when they're feeling like they're just not sure who to go to, I think that's often one that students struggle with, is who can they speak to when they're struggling academically.
So again, I always recommend that the student speaks with their faculty members first. So faculty all are required to have a certain amount of office hours. So students attending those office hours, I encourage students to introduce themselves and attend office hours before they're struggling, because that helps build the relationship, and then it's not as daunting to combine that when they're struggling. But I know that that is not always realistic. They definitely can always send an email, and we actually have put in, I'll drop this in the chat. We've put in some email templates for students online, and requesting to meet outside office hours, how to do that, calling out sick, class content question, schedule conflict. So we have done some plug and play. They'll have to adapt it because we know that that can be daunting for them. If they're, if they have a grade dispute, what does that look like? And what is the process there? So we've built some of those pieces out. I think, it depends on what they're struggling with. Are they struggling with how the class is outlined? Are they struggling to make sure that they can attend the class and that they're getting all the material? Plus services. So that's programs leading to university success, I believe, is that what that stands for. But our plus services is really our tutoring services. So I always encourage students to check out Plus. They are located in the library on the main floor towards the back. And so getting signed up for a Plus tutoring group or working with them to get a tutor for whatever class that they're taking can be really helpful. We have a math lab on campus, and I believe that one actually is in Kingston. Does that seem right, Maria? So we have a math lab, and students can go to the math lab and just do drop-in to get help with math. And that is staffed during the day. We have a writing lab, and actually for the writing lab, students can submit writing samples online. Some of it is really just convincing the students that there's nothing that's the best way to get them to the help they need is they have to talk to some people. And so some of it is just really helping them brainstorm or even role play, like how are you going to do this? Like, so could you email them? Could you call them? Now, most of our faculty are really excellent at getting back to students or helping them. Occasionally you will hear a circumstance where it's like, well, I emailed them and they didn't get back to me. And then it's, okay, can you call them? Can you go to their office hours? And if they've exhausted some of those things, or there's a conflict for whatever reason with the faculty member, that's where you want to talk to your student about meeting with the chair of the department. So every program that we have, so if they're taking an English class, that reports up to the English department. If they're taking a math class, that reports up to the math department. So every class that they're taking reports up to a department, and there is a department chair. And the department chair that position is designed to help students navigate conflicts with their faculty or additional circumstances that they may be navigating. So helping them reach out to those folks can be really beneficial. And I will try to see, we have this outlined somewhere online. So let me see if I can find that in just a little bit. So going through that process, if the department chair is not helpful, or let's say the faculty member that they are struggling with is the department chair, then the dean that of the college that the course reports to, which is not necessarily, it's not the dean of students. The dean that the class reports to is the next step in line. If they really get lost in that situation, or they have some additional extenuating circumstances, they can fill out an I-Care form, and I will show you where that is. And a member of my team in student accommodation and support services will help them. If they're academically struggling because potentially they have they need an accommodation, a learning accommodation. They had those learning accommodations maybe in K through 12, and they thought, I'm not going to need it now in college. So they didn't register with our student accommodations and support services team. Then I would really encourage them. They can submit everything online, reach out to our student accommodation and support services team, or maybe it's the first time they're realizing I might have a learning disability, right? Or I might be struggling with ADD or ADHD. They can reach out to student accommodation and support services, and that team will help them navigate, what are the resources to get a diagnosis and then to get those accommodations in place. Sam, some students have never needed a tutor before and feel like they shouldn't need one. What would you suggest a parent tell a student who is struggling to encourage them to use a tutor? So that is really hard. I have a sibling. My sibling and I are very different humans. I have a sibling who was notorious for saying, I got it, I got it, I got it, which to everyone in my family to this day, they're now in their late 30s. The minute they say that, we are like, they don't got it, right? Like that is a sign to us that like they're trying to, so that can be a really difficult situation because again, it's talking to them about opting in. I think what you can do is say, that's fully understandable that you've never needed a tutor before. It sounds like you're struggling. Why don't you give it a shot? Because you can always stop doing it, right? So, part of it is like, why don't you check out what they have available, or why don't you see if it might work for you? Because now we're at a point where we're just going to try some things. I also think that, quite frankly, college is a different beast. In K through 12, teachers are much more hands-on than they are in the collegiate system. So if you're in class and you're also doing a really big portion of your work in class, and the teacher is walking around and checking on some of those things. And in college, it's like you're coming to class, you're getting a lot of the content, and then the expectation is you're doing a lot of work outside of class to grapple with that information, internalize that information. And so it is just different. And I think that one of the things that can be helpful is talking to students about like, there's a lot of people that didn't need tutoring in high school because of the way the curriculum was structured and the way that worked, that come to college and they need a little bit extra support. Oftentimes, some of the tutoring groups are students really just who are more external processors, having the ability to talk through it with someone else, because that opportunity isn't always provided in the classroom space, because the expectation at the college level is that students are really setting some of that stuff up outside of class. Now, some of our really phenomenal professors help students right away in setting up some of those groups and setting up some of those systems, but not all. And so, it's not it's not necessarily because they don't believe in it. It's because they really think like, oh, the students, they've got this, right? And so, talking through with them, like, try some things. There's a ton of students on our campus that use our tutors, and most of the time, a lot of our tutors, most of our tutors actually are other students that took the course that potentially needed tutoring, and then the tutoring was successful for them and they were successful in the course, and then they come back around and they are also tutors for the course to pay it forward. And so that's the other thing, is that many of our tutors are also people that may have struggled in the course at one point and received some really good tutoring that helped them excel. And now they have the ability to do that for someone else. Does Becky, feel free to expand on that if none of that helped. Other questions? So I am gonna really quick. Oh, was there a question?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I am really gonna drop some. I'm gonna drop some resources in the chat for you all. So the first one that I just dropped in is a site, resources for students, that's a little bit of a one-stop shop. So our eye care referral, that help with faculty and grades that I gave you earlier, community resources that are in the area. We are fully aware that we at Eastern can't meet every need that is out there. And so we have built a page that provides some additional resources in the community. We also have links to a lot of our different campus centers. We have a self-care corner, what we do about Title IX or sexual misconduct, how to report complaints or concerns. If a student, Yom Kippur was the other day, and so like if a student needs an accommodation, a religious accommodation, to not attend class and to work with a faculty member, that's there. Being a good neighbor, absence notifications. So we can't, we don't have a central absence policy, but if a student submits one of those, we will let their faculty know that they're working with our team and that it's not just they're blowing class off. EWU departments are there, financial support, and some of the different resources we have around there. I will also drop in, we certainly have more to add to this site, but there's a site that's resources for parents and guardians. And one of the things that's on there is a stepped care guide. So oftentimes, and that's not helpful. If you click on it, it will say the plugin. It may not be working, but just click through that and it'll open up a PDF of our stepped care guide. So, how can students, how can we prevent some of those really crisis points, and, working with students on practicing self-care, building their community, developing their skills, utilizing campus resources, connecting with off-campus resources, and then seeking immediate care. So it really starts with how are they doing some of that self-care. One of the big things that I notice with college students, and well, it's not just college students, but one of the things that I've noticed is sleep cycles have a huge impact. And when students come to college, because there's nobody telling them to go to bed at a certain time and wake up at a certain time, and it's really easy for them to play video games until 2 a.m. or if you're me, to watch TikTok videos until 2 a.m. Right? So, I mean, their sleep patterns, if they're not getting enough sleep, that has a huge impact on their mental health well-being, their physical well-being, and their ability to be successful. So one of the first things that I often talk to families about is, just doing some basic check-ins on, what are you doing to stay healthy and take care of yourself? How's sleep going for you in college? Like, what do you need to do to get better sleep, type of thing, because that leads to a lot of other things. So that stepped care guide and thinking through kind of those different levels can be helpful. And then I also am going to give you the link for resources for faculty and staff, because quite frankly, there's a lot of overlap with what we provide faculty and staff and what might be useful for you as parents. So again, the stepped care guide is on there, the iCare student referral form, academic integrity. We did the same thing for faculty that we did for students, which we created email templates on how to check in with students, because sometimes it's like, I don't know how to do this and not be a little weird, and so like, I mean, it's trying to help people learn how to communicate with each other is really one of our big goals. The student conduct code is on there. And then there is this, Maria mentioned to me beforehand, maybe bringing up the red folder. The red folder is something that we provide all our faculty and staff with to help them work with students. And we built it, and it's also online. So, recognizing common signs of distress with students. I'll put that link right in the chat. Where, when to, how to respond, and then how to refer, and what's next. And then, there's some handouts that we also put in the red folder, and then on the side, some quick resources. So that red folder may be also helpful as you're having those conversations with students on how to respond a little bit in some of their crises and what they need. So there's a lot of resources that we have built. And sometimes it's just knowing that they're there so that when you need them, you're like, oh, I know they have a resource for that. We can Google it. And when in doubt, I just refer everybody back to that iCare form. You can put in an iCare form as a parent or guardian family member, and we will reach out to your student. Your student can put in a student intake form. Faculty can put in an iCare form, staff, that kind of thing. So that's accessible to you as well. So lots of resources that we have built because what we know, again, is Megan, Maria, myself, we're 3 people, and our campus population our student population is over 8,000 students. And while we have a lot of other incredible colleagues on campus, this really doesn't work if it's not a full community approach, and everybody doesn't have just enough knowledge to try to help them navigate and also advocate for themselves. Any additional questions or things that have come up for people?
There was a question DM'd to me that kind of ties in, especially to the red folder, like you were talking about, Sam. So how can parents discern when to get involved if their student is struggling, and any tips on that?
So I think if you have already, there are times, quite frankly, when a parent should get involved. However, I think oftentimes thinking about the situation, and have you had good conversations with them about, can you tap into these resources? Have you called these people, right? Like, and they've exhausted some of those resources and it's not working, that might be a time to get involved. If they seemingly are doing nothing, that can be a really hard thing as well. And I think, sooner rather than later, even reaching out to me and giving me the scenario, I'm happy to brainstorm depending on the scenario with parents. Like, is it time for you to ask your student to have a release of information on file if you don't already have one, so that we can have a collective conversation about what's going on for them? So those can kind of be hard to discern at times, but you do know your student, right? If they're like my brother and they're like, I got this, and you've heard that 72 times, and grades come out in the fall and you're like, oh my gosh, you really don't got this. Let's have some different conversations of, it may be time for you to reach out to me and us to have a conversation. Is it time to have more of a collective conversation, right? If your student is a little bit more like me, which is the minute they hit a roadblock, they call their mom and they're like, listen, what exactly am I supposed to do here, right? So when I was in college, I was living in the residence halls, and I ended up having a little bit of a medical emergency, right? So I had what I found to be a kidney stone when I was 19, living in the residence halls, but I thought truly that I was just dying. And I rolled off the top of my bunk bed in my residence hall room, and I crawled to the phone because I had my own room. And I called my mom, who was 8 hours away and a nurse. And I said, I'm dying. What do I do? And my mom literally said, the hospital is right across the street. You need to get yourself there. I'm 8 hours away. And she wasn't wrong. So I went and knocked on I just was in a panic, right? And I went and knocked on one of my friend's rooms. She got me to the hospital. We got some pain medication on board. I was okay, right? And I just needed someone to tell me, like, or to walk through the steps with me of like, you need to breathe. You need to take it step by step. Let's plan the steps. Can you do the steps? Can you walk through? Because part of college is really helping them transition to the ability for them to long-term navigate a lot of these things on their own. They need to know that they have you as a safety net and that you're going to be there for them. But long-term, it might actually be annoying for some of you to have a 45-year-old continuing to call you to navigate every situation for you, right? So this time is an ability to help them, like, can you do it on your own? Can we walk through the steps and help them transition? But again, it depends on what the situation is. If it's a really serious mental health crisis, you're probably going to need to get involved. If it is, I'm just really struggling in this course, or I don't like this person, or I don't like my roommate, it's more of a coaching conversation, I think, until it's a crisis point. So I trust all of you. The people that come to these phone calls usually are just really invested in, like, how do we help them? And so, I trust that your student, and that you'll know, like, is this the time to, hit the, like, I'm coming in button, or can I coach them? So as parents and family members, you're transitioning from being in the day-to-day of, like, go to bed, get up, right, to being a little bit more of a life coach. And so that's a transition for some of you as well, probably. I hope that helps. Any other questions?
And that's why I like, you're talking about transitioning, we're all transitioning. And honestly, this is going to help me when my son transitions to a university himself, and understanding the role that I will play in that, and really learning from all of these webinars that we're doing, these Zoom meetings, to really help with that, because it's that transition that we're, one, as a parent, never really truly ready for. And then when it happens, it's like, what is my next steps? How am I navigating all of this? And so all those resources are really great, because it always helps us to kind of just find our ground, like grounding ourselves too, and helping our students with, being here at Eastern, and what does that look like for me as a family member. So
two things, Maria, as I was thinking about this, there is a parent that this is so ridiculous that I'm on TikTok. It is a hazard of my job. It's not just a choice. But there is a parent that I follow on TikTok that's a parent of a college student. And she talks about her experience in parents groups and working with her son. And she did one funny video where she was like, when you call home students and it's like you have to add drama to everything. Like you have to make it dramatic, and you need to understand how that lands on the people that you have left behind. They want to swoop in and they want to save you. But quite frankly, like when you call home and say, like, there's nothing to eat, I have no food and it's horrible. Like, just ask for money that you don't, you probably just want to go out and do something extra or fun. You don't have to create drama around it. There's good food on campus. I mean, there is really good food on campus, with Freshens open and Einstein's Bagels. And if they're calling home and saying there's nothing to eat, that just means they're kind of sick of it. And that might be a good time for a care package, or like, do you have some Eagle Flex? Why don't you go down and get yourself, something in the mason jar or whatever, right? Sometimes students will, call home and say, there's nothing to do. That I know 100% is a full on lie, right? Like that, it means that they don't know maybe what is out there to do or how to find that, right? And so it's creating the drama around there's nothing to do, and I have nothing to do, right? But there is so much to do every day on a college campus. So there are ways. That's where Maria and Megan are going to be really excellent at, like, what is going on campus and trying to help. The I have no friends calling home, that does actually really concern me for them, because I know if they have a support system and they make friends, that they are more likely to excel and exceed. So if they call and they say, like, I have no friends and I'm really lonely, it's a coaching conversation about, like, okay, what are the things that you are doing to, get out there, or what could you do to get out there? Have you looked at clubs? Have you looked at organizations? And Megan just dropped the presence link in there, and connecting them with a staff member that could reach out to them and talk to them about their interests. If they say they aren't really gelling or connecting with people, that can be really hard. Again, we all come from different circumstances and have different personalities of, like, are we used to getting out there and trying different things, and what are some of those easy inroads, and how did they do it before? They're in classes with all different people, so it's not like a high school where they have the same people over and over and over again. And so some of it is trying to help them figure out and being honest with them. I think everyone on this call probably has an experience in life where you moved somewhere or you changed jobs, and it takes a couple of months, if not more, to make friends. And that's real, and them knowing that, if we're still in the same spot at the end of the year, that's probably an issue, right? Because it means that we haven't been able to find our fit or our groove. But if 3 weeks in, you haven't met your team or your people, that's really normal. And let's just talk about what is going to work for you to meet your people. Like, I remember that every time I relocate, it usually took me, when I was in my 30s and not in the college environment where it was built in, right? It took me 2 to 3 years to really find all the people, right? And it shouldn't be that long in college, because that means they're going to be juniors or seniors before they find their people. But having those conversations of, like, what you're feeling is really normal, and probably you all have felt this too, and so then talking to them about how can they try some things to meet some people. And some of them, it's maybe the disappointment of, like, they ended up with a roommate that isn't just automatically their best friend. And so they're going through some disappointment of, like, I don't have any friends on this hall or, like, where I live. And so then it's like, okay, well, let's talk about how we get friends in a different space, right? And so and what you might be able to join to find those people. And there's plenty of folks on campus that are willing to help them do that. But yeah, so hopefully some of this is helpful for you all. Any other questions, Megan, that have come in, or things that would be helpful?
I don't have any that have come into me, no.
Okay, so I'm gonna do a couple of things. This is always a risk for me, because then I have to triage. But there, I've dropped my direct office line in the chat and my direct email. If anybody ever needs a consult. And then a lot of parents do actually, if you have social media, you do not need to get social media. If you've avoided it this far, more power to you. I'm very impressed. But if you do have social media, I do have an Instagram account that a lot of people follow at DOS EWU. Parents reach out to me on that. Students reach out to me on that. I have between a 24 and 48 hour response time. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you I don't know the answer, and it's going to take me a little bit of time to track it down. But those are all ways that you can get a hold of me, and I'm happy to support you because, you know, again, for your student to be really successful and to launch, it is a community approach, and we believe that you are our partners in that, and really value your expertise as their family in knowing them and helping them navigate things. So that's how you can get a hold of me and reach out anytime.
Awesome. I cannot thank you enough. We, when thinking about how do we start their Eagle Family Hour, we knew we needed you, Sam, to be a part of this because you are our go-to, especially our students when they're needing that support, and you are just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to all these resources. So we will have all of these links on our website. This part of the, we've been recording, so we have the information. So you can go back to it on our website, and we'll share that in an email as well. So you definitely can start to build your own library, your own links of this is, what did Sam say? I knew I can do an iCare form. What was that again? So you definitely can go back and review this, and also look at all the links to, like Sam said, we are here. Part of our role as to be engaged with all of our families is to support you as you're supporting your students here at Eastern. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, Sam, and being with us today. And to all of our families, I got 2 shout outs. So next week is our Eagle Family Homecoming Week. And so we are really excited to welcome our families to participate in any and all of the events that we have next week. We are doing the kickoff on Monday, and we go from Monday the 10th all the way through the 16th. And so Megan will put in the link for our Eagle Family Homecoming website. There are many, many events, and not just sports events. So sometimes families are like, it's all about sports. Even though I'm a diehard alum of Eastern and I love going to our football games, I know it's not for everyone. So there is a blog that I have for you all about other events happening on campus and surrounding areas. So it is beautiful right now this time of year in the Cheney and Spokane area. And week 4 next week is a week 4 of our quarter. And it is a really good time to just check in with your students. So if you're not able to attend, just being intentional about checking in and asking questions in regards to what are they being involved in? How are they doing? Have you spoken with your professors during their office hours? So week 4 is just a great check-in. I love that we have homecoming to help with that as well. So again, when students are saying there's nothing happening on campus, you're going to tell them, oh, I just saw this website and it has all kinds of events for the week. So we really invite you to join us if you can. And if you're not able to come, to definitely continue to have conversations with your students and supporting them. And then we have a council. So we would like to invite you all, if you would like. Becky on the call right now is one of our council members. And so we started a council members last year to really hear from our parents and family members about how can we better communicate with our families. How do we continue to have Zoom meetings like this, guest speakers that you want to hear from, and just really be that support network between all of you and your students. And so a way that we thought would be great is through our council. So definitely take a look at that. And if that's something that you might be interested in joining us, we would love to have you as part of our council and be a member of that. Anything else? Megan, did I get it all? Sam?
I did have a parent reach out to me this last week about, I'd like to send my student a care package, or is there anything on campus that people do? So you can always send mail to them. They actually do really love that. With the one exception of if you're my mother and you're cutting everything out of the newspaper from home to send me, and maybe I didn't love that as much in college as I should have. But they do love the mail that's not, bills and junk mail and that kind of thing. So you can send them care packages. The other thing is sometimes adding some Eagle Flex money to their card so that they can go to some local restaurants can be great. And I did hear that our dining services, they had it on a pause during more of a COVID era in spring term, but they have the Thinking of You program back up and running. And so dining services, you can contact them and they will send balloon bouquets or some little goodie baskets. And then I'm sure Maria and Megan can also get out to all of you some local shops like florists and that kind of thing that would be good for you to go through if you so choose to go that route, if there's birthdays or other events or you can't make it type of thing. So that's some ways to if you can't always make it. I know, like when I went to school, I was a little over 8 hours away from home. And so my parents didn't come as much as if I would have just been a couple hours away. And so we recognize that sometimes that just doesn't work, but there's a lot next week. If you are coming and you can come early, Thursday night is probably my favorite night. I don't know that students always love it when parents are like, but this is when I'm doing bed races with my friends, I can't pay attention to you. But Thursday night is our bonfire. So we have a big bonfire downtown Cheney and then bed races, and our faculty and staff and community members will compete against students. So Megan and I did bed race. Maria, did you run last year? So Megan and I ran bed races last year. I am never doing it again. I think I might have broken my body for a month. My chiropractor was like, what? I've never seen you this bad. And it's because I had to keep running, and the women's basketball team was running and they're Division I athletes. Anyway, it's super fun. It's downtown Cheney. So that's Thursday night. So if you are coming in early, that's a fun event to come out to, and also just experience the small town Cheney and how the community comes out and celebrates our homecoming. So yep. Reach out anytime. And I am now jumping to Instagram Live with about homecoming week.
I love
So I'm going to go do that. And thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate your time.
See you next time.
Yes, we'll send out the next event that we'll have for this. So thank you.